33. Dear Kiddo, take my hand into darkness and through 2 hours of Colorado construction delays. Adventures with Mom. If you've ever taken a road trip through Colorado, you know that construction delays are as inevitable as bad gas station coffee and at least one existential crisis. Mom and I were en route to Beaver Creek, which, as previously established, was a weirdly specific destination that definitely had something to do with her third ex-husband, Craig. But before we could arrive at our spa-infused purgatory, we had to sit through 2 or 3 hours of roadwork delays, which gave us plenty of time to experience two things. The creeping realization that this trip was going to suck, a deep, unfiltered dive into the bizarre social hierarchy of Mom's childhood, which was basically Dallas, but somehow worse. Because we weren't just going to Beaver Creek. We were supposed to stay at Kelly's place. And Kelly, oh Kelly, was not a real friend. Kelly, the blonde ideal. You ever meet someone who is not really your friend, but more of a lifelong measuring stick for your self-worth? That was Kelly to Mom. Mom had idolized Kelly since childhood. Not because Kelly was a particularly good person, or interesting, or deeply kind. No, Kelly was rich, blonde, and effortlessly better. She was the apex predator of Dallas striving culture, the kind of woman who was born with a silver spoon in her mouth and immediately threw it away, because she only ate with handcrafted gold utensils imported from Milan. Mom had spent her entire life comparing herself to Kelly. Kelly had the money, the status, the flawless blonde hair, and the perfectly manicured life that Mom felt she was supposed to have had. And that's where things got weird, because Mom's family wasn't quite in the same tier. The struggle of strivers, the Farmer's Branch saga. Mom's family wasn't exactly poor, but they weren't exactly rich either. They were that awkward middle-class space where you're doing fine, but not fine enough to be considered successful by Dallas standards, which, in Texas, is social death. There's a reason they call Dallas the Los Angeles of Texas, because everybody is trying to be more successful than they actually are. Nobody can just exist. They have to be seen as thriving, winning, outpacing, even if they're actually drowning in debt to maintain the illusion. And Mom's family? They weren't quite in the race. Sure, they were close enough to see the race happening, but they weren't quite on the track. And the thing that made it all worse? The hair. The hair that made them different. Now, here's where things take a turn into Dallas nightmare fuel. Apparently, growing up, Mom and her siblings were accused of having African-American blood because of the texture of their hair, which, by the way, was just normal curly hair. But in Dallas Striver Society, this was a scandal, a full-blown crisis, because God forbid your genetic lottery doesn't align with the exact correct hair texture of the ruling elite. And so, Nona, bless her deranged heart, decided to combat this horrific problem by bleaching Mom's dark, rich curls into oblivion. Because if you can't actually be rich, blonde, and genetically superior, the next best thing is to fake it so aggressively that people start questioning their own reality. Nona's whole situation. Now, Nona, my grandmother, had her own baggage. This was a woman who got married as a teenager, most likely before she even had time to fully process what life was. And what happens when you marry too young before you get to live? You resent the hell out of it. And I think that's why Nona tried to act young for the rest of her life. She missed out on her youth, so she just decided, screw it, I'm taking Mom's instead. Which explains a lot, because Mom wasn't just encouraged to be materialistic, she was trained. She was groomed into this hyper-consumptive, high-status chasing mindset. Because Nona wasn't just raising a daughter, she was living vicariously through her. Mom was her second chance at being young, rich, blonde, and desirable, which meant that Mom's entire life was one long, desperate performance. Back to the car ride from hell. So, there we were, stuck in construction traffic, en route to Kelly's house, as Mom filled the silence with a bizarre mix of childhood trauma, societal resentment, and absolute obliviousness to her own ridiculousness. And as I listened, the whole puzzle came together. Mom didn't just want to be rich. Mom wanted to be someone else, and that someone else was Kelly. She had spent her entire life chasing an illusion, bleaching her hair, marrying up, chasing wealth, chasing status, and yet still not being Kelly. And now, we were literally driving to go stay at Kelly's house. Because even after all these years, Mom still hadn't let it go. Final thoughts. The lesson I didn't want to learn. So, kiddo, what's the takeaway here? What did I learn from this delayed, disastrous drive through Colorado? Well, first of all, if you're stuck in construction traffic for 3 hours, make sure you have headphones. But more importantly, if someone spends their entire life trying to be someone else, they will never be happy. Mom had every opportunity. She was beautiful. She was wealthy. She had charmed her way into every advantage. But it wasn't enough, because it wasn't Kelly's life. And so she would keep chasing it, keep striving, keep burning through relationships, money, status, and reality itself in a never-ending quest to become something she was never meant to be. And me? I was just a passenger on this insane ride. For now.